Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Anthony Davis is eligible for an extension starting in August. Are we 100% sure the Lakers are going to give it to him? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everyone for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcast. It's always going to be free. It's never going to be behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 17,000 subscribers to that channel, all of whom are looking forward to a very busy offseason filled with the types of things, Andy, that we'll be talking about. As you can see on the board there to the right there, we'll get into Malik Beasley and Mo Bamba, the long promised Malik Beasley and Mo Bamba segment, which we just haven't been able to get to. And it's going to have to wait because we have to talk about Anthony Davis and questions about his extension. And we'll do that, Andy, as soon as we let people know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Also, more evidence that Austin Reeves has officially made it. That will be coming up in the show. But Andy, the big question that was interesting, some chatter about Anthony Davis. He is eligible for a 3-year, $167 million extension from the Lakers in August. The Lakers could make that offer. And there is not unanimity as to whether or not the Lakers will leap at the opportunity to give it to him. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, conflicting, I don't know if you'd call them reports, opinions, sense on it or whatever, but one coming from Dave McMenamin, covers the Lakers for ESPN, friend of the show. He was on ESPN LA 710 with Sedano and Scott Kaplan, and was talking about this extension, said, quote, "Certainly the Lakers thinking ever since they acquired Anthony Davis is that it's an Anthony Davis, LeBron James combo deal, with LeBron James only under contract for sure for another year with a player option the following year, and with him openly contemplating retirement at this stage of his career. As great as Anthony Davis is, and I really think he's a great player, I think he reproved himself to a lot of people outside in the basketball world and inside the building in El Segundo with his efforts this year, especially coming back from his foot injury. But you don't just do it. You play out the year with him. You see where things stand with him and LeBron. Obviously, you risk the second year he has left. He can opt out and leave as a free agent. But listen, I've said this many times. The best thing about the Lakers trade for Dwight Howard was not re-signing Andrew Bynum to a long-term deal and not getting anything out of it. You hope Anthony Davis stays healthy and you get the best out of him next year. I don't think they're going to be in a position to be interested in a long-term extension for him this summer. But then Brian Windhorst, also covers everything NBA for ESPN, was, I believe, on Get Up, but one of the main programs at ESPN, and said about Anthony Davis, quote, "They don't want him messing with free agency in 2024. That's a primary offseason thing for the Lakers. Get Anthony Davis locked down even past when LeBron James is signed for."
It's a really interesting thing. Like, it was funny to me that Dave brought up the Bynum thing, because back when we were doing this for the LA Times and ESPN, we were on the beat, when this was happening, when, the Andrew Bynum for Dwight Howard, that turned into was it a 3-way deal or a 4-way deal? I don't remember.
Four-way deal.
Four-way deal.
Involving
Right.
Denver, Philadelphia, and Orlando.
Right.
The way we were covering the team with Dave McMenamin.
That's right. What was interesting about that too is that that was my biggest thing. Is I was always saying, it's like, good trade, bad trade. I do not want to be the human being, in this case, Mitch Kupchak, who has to give Andrew Bynum a long-term deal, because if you don't trade him, you got to keep him. You got to sign him. And that was a terrifying prospect. And as we all saw, he got a big money deal and really never played. And so I don't think Anthony Davis is Andrew Bynum. First of all, he's a better player. Second of all, he's not an Andrew Bynum level injury risk. But the principle around it is, do you want to be committed to Anthony Davis for $55 million a year, 55 plus actually is what that would be, as he gets into his 30s, with his injury history and with that, with the prospect that LeBron might not be there. I know you were, kind of questioning some of this stuff earlier in the week, even to whether or not you'd consider trading LeBron. So when you see these kind of conflicting things, what is your thought about an extension automatically in August for AD, $167 million, 3 years?
I mean, first of all, the immediate thing that comes to my mind when you broke down the yearly is I don't know if I want anybody to that contract.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
I mean, other than maybe like this age of Jokic, this age of Luka, I mean, like there are very few players, if any, I think that I feel comfortable with at like a 50-something million dollar yearly.
Mhm.
Like, forget Anthony Davis. I don't care who, like, again, it could be Jokic. I'd still be like, ooh.
Especially in the world
My.
especially in the world we're moving into with the aprons and the second aprons and the major tax penalties and all. It's like part of the reason that the Kyrie and LeBron thing is just ludicrous in Dallas, especially, is like the idea that Kyrie wants to get paid. LeBron's going to come in with like, his $47 million or whatever. Like they would have 3 players to take up their entire salary cap.
Yeah.
I mean, it is absurd, but you're right. 55 million for any player is terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, it underscores too the idea that if LeBron plays out the final 2 years of his contract and wants to keep playing in the NBA for the Lakers in his early 40s at that point on a new deal, it can't be a max deal. Like you simply cannot do that. Just as a side note, I don't care who LeBron is and what he means to the league and all of that stuff. And even if he's still playing at a fairly high or even like astonishingly high level, given the context, you simply cannot do it. But what I find really interesting, though, the idea of Dave mentioning LeBron and AD being seen as a package, certainly when they were acquired and LeBron and Anthony Davis worked very aggressively and openly in concert to make this team up happen.
Right.
But there had always been the idea, the main goal, that eventually this would be seen as Anthony Davis's team.
Right. LeBron moves on and Anthony Davis is your star.
Right. I was going to say, while LeBron is on the team, we've talked about this before, much less when LeBron eventually retires. But at the same time, we've talked about the evidence that Anthony Davis can be that true number one that's built around, if nothing else, consistently on a game in, game out basis offensively, in the way you often think about those guys. As great of a scorer as Anthony Davis can be, he hasn't shown it. And then you factor in the injury concerns that are only going to become scarier as he gets older. It makes you wonder how comfortable the organization is with an Anthony Davis future. But at the same time, if it's not going to be Anthony Davis, you wonder who it is, because how many players are better than him?
That's what makes this problematic. Like when you were talking about entertaining trades for LeBron, you get the 10th pick, you get
the 10th pick is the reason to me that
but I'm saying like
where LeBron is in his
career.
The
best deal Dallas could probably offer would include the 10th pick, like another draft pick in 3 or 4 years, whenever it is they have one that they can trade, and
they're young
they're
guys.
2 young players, and Green and Hardy and Maxi Kleba and whatever filler you can come up with. It's not enough for me, but because my feeling is like, while you have these guys, you cannot possibly do better.
Sure.
Like you're not going to be able to trade LeBron for a better player. You're not going to be able to trade Anthony Davis for a better player. If you trade one of those dudes, it is almost guaranteed that you're going to be worse, even with all the risks that you're taking. The question is, and we'll do this after the break, how long do you want to push the timeline out? Like, you've got 2 years with LeBron. Do you want to try? Presumably you have 2 years with LeBron. Would you want to try, if you could, would you want to try to line those things up? And I'm not sure you'd be able to do it, which might just leave you with 1 year of each of those guys. is that a better place for the Lakers to be rather than having the certainty of having a star under contract for presumably when LeBron is gone? So we'll do that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Game Time. And years ago, some friends of mine and I went to go see LL Cool J in LA, really last minute, scrambling to find tickets. We ended up going to a scalper. Tickets were fake. We managed to get into the concert, but after that, I'm like, won't do that again, because you should be having fun anticipating an event. It shouldn't be stressful. And that's why I love Game Time, the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy shows, and theater near you. And with killer deals on last-minute tickets and the best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for fun. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always have the best price. And if you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. It is the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Buy 2 tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps. Tickets go directly to your phone and you're set. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
So tell me if I'm missing this, if I'm doing the math wrong here. AD has next year on his contract.
Yes.
After that, he becomes a free agent.
No, he could be. It's a player option.
He has the option of becoming a free agent.
Right. He and LeBron are both potentially lined up through the 24-25 season. Both of them have player options.
Right. Thank you. That is correct. As opposed to the way I described it, which is incorrect. That would be that's ideal. At least it seems ideal to me. Where do you come down on that? Like, would you risk ending up in a situation where both of those guys could walk? You have a bad season, whatever it might be, and you end up kind of holding the bag with no stars, and you haven't been able to make a trade or whatever it might be, or you're trading from a point of disadvantage? Or do you feel confident enough in Anthony Davis that you would want to just say, August is here. We're not going to do better than Anthony Davis. Any comparable player is going to cost $50-something million. Let's get this done.
I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I don't know if Anthony Davis can be the true focal point of a team in the way stars are traditionally defined. He absolutely can be your elite defensive force in a superstar, and he's proven that, I think, without a shadow of a doubt, assuming health doesn't become a thing. Anthony Davis is that much of a game changer defensively.
Mm-hmm.
Offensively, we've talked about this before, a lot of the questions with Anthony Davis are in certain respects specific to being teamed up with LeBron, because LeBron needs more help now than he did, when the Lakers first acquired him, much less earlier in his career. Anthony Davis averaged 26 points per game in the regular season, about 23 in the playoffs. There were lulls at times for sure, but if LeBron was still in his prime, you would be describing Anthony Davis as unfair to the rest of the league as his, Pau Gasol, so to speak.
Right. Absolutely.
Kobe. A lot of this is, again, specific to LeBron. If LeBron left and you brought in a superstar level scorer that was young enough that you don't have to worry about his availability or the load that you're putting on him, everything with Anthony Davis would be perfect, in all honesty. So it starts getting to that question of, who do you think you can replace LeBron with? Is it somebody that is as good as Anthony Davis? Maybe not as good, but a more reliable scorer? What those details matter.
Or two, Andy, let's say LeBron goes, you're unable to find, LeBron retires. I'm not even talking about he goes, plays another team, everything. It's just 2 years from now. He's like, you know what? I've had enough. Next year, Bronny plays at USC. 2 years, Bronny makes the pros. They play together for one season. LeBron is old at that point. And he's had enough. Even if you can't replace him, the other question that becomes really important here to ask would be like, how confident are you that if you needed to reset, like genuinely reset, that you could turn Anthony Davis into value? Like you mentioned in the first segment, and this is something that I've been thinking about a lot with the new CBA. Like we've seen coaches, for example, whether it's paying for a head coach like Monty Williams in Detroit, like a massive number
It's the biggest coaching contract ever, I believe.
Right. Frank Vogel didn't get that contract from Phoenix, but Phoenix has then turned around and paid 2 assistant coaches really big money to fill out that bench. And I feel like the way the cap is starting to, like, teams are going to be trying to find these places where they can get real advantage. Another one that I've been thinking about, though, and this was prompted by the Jaylen Brown Supermax stuff. Jaylen Brown, if people missed it, he made All NBA second team, and he's eligible now for a $295 million Supermax contract, which puts his salary into like the $60 million a year range, something just insane. It's crazy. So I wonder, like, are we 100% sure that a team, when Anthony Davis, with all these new restrictions, that when Anthony Davis, if the Lakers let him get to a walk year and Davis says, you know what, I'm going to opt out and I'm going to either test the market or make the Lakers re-sign me to a bigger deal, are we 100% sure that whether it's Anthony Davis or any star getting into his 30s, particularly one with an injury history, that he's going to get that max deal? Because I am not.
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know, because, we saw, I know it's not apples to apples because he was, I think, a little bit younger when this happened, but, Kevin Durant ended up getting a max off a torn Achilles. And I know people
different
will say
CBA and different player.
Sure. Different CBA and different player. But, people treated this as, it's Kevin Durant. He's been fairly durable over most of his career. He's the type of player that should be able to age into this. And the truth is, Kevin Durant, when he plays, is very good, but he has suffered a lot of injuries since then. And he's somebody now that you really do have to think about as, if not an injury waiting to happen, certainly an injury risk.
He's a 50 to 60 game a year player now.
On one hand, you've seen this play out with Kevin Durant. On the other hand, if Kevin Durant right now became a free agent, I have a feeling that he could get like a $60 million a year deal.
And that's there's always something, like, I think ultimately what I think was probably the best route for the Lakers, because I think if he signs the extension, the Lakers give him a 3-year extension, does that kicks in after, after his player option and all that stuff is over, or does that just tack on to?
It would depend on whether or not he opted. I don't know. And I'm saying, I don't know the mechanics exactly of how this would work, but it would depend on if he opted out of his contract to sign some type of new deal, or if it's an extension onto the final year of his deal.
What I'm saying? Like, because I'd be willing to take Anthony Davis like 2 years past when I think, or a year or two back, into his age 33, because he's going to turn 31 this year. Like, I feel like I'd be comfortable taking Anthony Davis into his like 33 season, knowing that you might have to bite the bullet there at the end. I'd be really uncomfortable taking him up to 34, 35. I would want to see next season. And I think I'm more in the Dave camp. If I have to, like, I don't know if I'd want to be on the hook for AD right now for 5 seasons.
Well, I mean,
it just seems
again, but I don't want to go back down this rabbit hole again, but this gets back to what I was talking about, where if the 10th pick was on the table in a theoretical LeBron trade with Dallas, that will never happen. This is why you have to at least think about it.
I guess
it's just because you might potentially end up with both of them out the door anyway. Again, I'm not looking to relitigate this.
No, I understand.
What it does speak to, though, really quickly, is the importance of some of the guys that they're looking to retain really becoming good. Like, say, not just those guys, new starlet magnet, perhaps Austin Reeves.
Oh yeah.
This is so great. Taylor Swift, for people unaware, recently broke up with her extremely problematic boyfriend, the singer of the band, the 1975s.
By the way, when you say for people who are unaware, that includes me.
Sure.
I was unaware.
I think his name is Matt Healy, whatever. But this led to a Twitter account at Refrigerator LAL putting out a joke. Following her breakup, Taylor Swift was reportedly seen in an Arkansas bar this weekend with star Laker basketball player Austin Reeves. This got picked up by a bunch of different places and actually treated as a thing.
Right.
That, we did some digging on this and found the origin of this, and it really was.
By digging, I mean, we asked a friend of ours who's
Sure.
both deep into the Austin Reeves and Taylor Swift business.
Right, exactly.
She clarified for us.
Right. And it was funny if you look at this picture we have up right now of this tweet, Austin Reeves's brother reacted to it with 6 crying emojis. But between this, like the ability for Austin Reeves to even be linked to Taylor Swift with people actually running with it, and his new lemondaddy.com billboard that is real. This is 100% real. I have driven past it. This is actually a picture of it that I took right now. They tell you don't pull up in a lemon, go to lemondaddy.com. And there's a picture of Austin Reeves in a sleeveless shirt showing off a golfing tan with his basketball. Between being linked to Taylor Swift and his lemondaddy.com money, letting you know Austin Reeves is considered a riser.
Oh no, look, there's nothing that could compete with undrafted free agent to dating Taylor Swift in 2 years. Like that would be a world record. Just a world record in what, Brian? No, just a world record. It's just a world record. Like nothing could ever be more impressive than that. Mm-hmm. But it's not that far behind to being undrafted free agent to linked in a joke to Taylor Swift. Yes. Like that's still pretty good. And so kudos to you, Austin Reeves. Andy, we owe the people. By the way, I suspect he agreed to the Lemon Daddy deal before the playoffs. I feel like that was, I think like post the playoffs this year, he might not have done that. All right. So Andy, we owe the people some Malik Beasley and Mo Bamba talk. They've been waiting, and we'll get to that next. If the Lakers are going to make a trade, there's obviously the D'Angelo Russell thing that's out there that they could do, but that is tricky because it would have to be a sign and trade, and that is just hard to do. The cap rules around that and what it triggers are complex. But then there's just the basic: you need a team that wants to sign D'Angelo Russell, and then also has stuff that you want in return. So it's just sign and trades are really complicated. And so that makes Russell a difficult trade chip. The ones that they actually control more are Malik Beasley, who has a team option for the Lakers at about almost $17 million next year, and Mo Bamba, who has a team option at, I think it's 10.5, close to 11.
Well, it's not a team option. It's either.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a partial guarantee, right?
It turns out I've seen conflicting reports on this, but it is either $10.3 million that is either guaranteed or not guaranteed at, I believe, June 29th, or it's a $10.3 million deal where he gets $300,000 no matter what.
Right.
But that is the deal on it. It is either fully guaranteed or not fully guaranteed, as opposed to a team option, which, as we will explain, matters a lot.
Right. So with Malik Beasley, because he has a team option, if the Lakers want to trade Beasley, they have to pick up the option first.
Yes.
And so what they can't do, and this is something that factors in really big, because what they cannot do is trade Beasley to another team, and then that team would be like, we're going to decline the option and save that money, have that money come off our cap. So Malik Beasley only has a year left. So, I mean, he will be an expiring contract, but he can't save teams money right away. And so packaging Bamba and Beasley together offers potentially some savings on Bamba, but not on Beasley.
Right.
So
and this is important.
That frames what kind of trades might be out there for those two.
Yeah, I mean, you could theoretically send $27 million in salary to the Lakers, take back Bamba and Malik Beasley, and save $10 million of against the 27 you sent out, but you're still left with Malik Beasley's $16.5 million. So this is important to clarify, because we've seen a lot of suggestions, whether on Twitter at Cam Brothers or in the Locked On Lakers YouTube comment section, of people suggesting trading out Bamba and Beasley to other teams that want to get $27 million off their books. And that's not the way this will work. Now, you could theoretically send out around $15 million to another team if you wanted to send out Bamba and Jared Vanderbilt, because Jared Vanderbilt's contract, same type of setup as Mo Bamba's, it's about $4.5 million, which this is confirmed. Only about $300,000 is guaranteed past, I believe it's the June 29th date. That, however, I think is unlikely, because Jared Vanderbilt is such a bargain in terms of the utility he provides defensively at that price. I would be very surprised if the Lakers, unless it involves getting someone that they really think will help them, I would be surprised if they did that. So it's really about $10 million of potential.
Right. So you have to find teams that, more than likely you're looking for teams that have at least some interest in those players, or the Lakers having to add, as they did at the trade deadline, draft picks, whether that's the 17th pick in this year's draft, whether it's future draft picks,
or take on long-term money.
Right.
In the future.
Some kind of sweetener, or you're taking on contracts that other teams don't want. What I think is likely to happen, and I think where the Lakers are really going to scour, is not in the star realm to go with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I think what they're going to try to do is look for that second tier player, second tier, third tier guy, the Buddy Hield type player. Like if you're trading out Malik Beasley, you got to bring some shooting back, particularly if you're not dedicated to bringing Russell back. Like if you're going to let Russell go and Beasley go, like you're back to having very little volume shooting other than LeBron, and I guess maybe Austin Reeves. But that you just, like, the shooting is an issue, and the Lakers have to address it. So, would Buddy Hield be kind of an upgrade there? Yes, absolutely. So, could you get Buddy Hield, who I think is a realistic target to be moved this offseason because he's on the bench now in Indiana? This is much different than, say, go get Miles Turner, who fits much more with what they're doing. They just signed him to a long deal. They seem to really like him. Coming off a great season. Maybe the Lakers can put together enough draft picks together, but I don't see it. Hield, though, is a little bit more superfluous to what they're doing over there. Maybe that kind of trade gets, but that's the tier of player that I think the Lakers should be looking at, whether it's if they move Russell or if they're moving Bamba and Beasley together or something, and to take on a big contract back. That's where I would look.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it was important to us, as much as we kept getting sidetracked by other news that was more like trenchant in terms of it just happening or just more hilarious. But we've seen enough people bringing this up as a possibility for the Lakers, the idea of turning Beasley and Bamba into $27 million of expiring, or not even expiring, $27 million of immediate cap savings. And that's not, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't mean that either one of them can't be used in some type of trade value individually or even together. It's just not the way I think a lot of people have thought about this. Right. And look, I'll be honest, until a few days ago, I was not entirely sure about the mechanics of trading Malik Beasley.
Yeah. I will say this: if they can't, we'll quit here, because just to frame the next question becomes, if you can't trade Beasley, and I'm not sure how big the market's going to be if another team doesn't have the following option available to them. If you can't trade Beasley, I would seriously consider. I realize he played himself out of the rotation. He did not shoot the ball well at all. He's the only guy that they traded for who had virtually no good moments as a Laker. I'm excusing Mo Bamba, who was just hurt the whole time. Beasley played pretty poorly from the moment he got here. A couple decent games, but that's about it.
He peaked seriously early.
Yeah. I would decline the team option and then try to re-sign him at a lower deal. Because he does have a track record and he does fill a need and a role, particularly in the regular season, as a floor spacer and as a high volume 3-point shooter who has had some success. And those guys are not easy necessarily to find around the league. So that's a subject that we can get into on another show. We will also get into this whole question of Dennis Schroeder and whether or not he will be able to return. It's like being a weatherman, Andy, in TV. You have to go backwards from where you're doing to make these things work. Locked on Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to see the show and hang out with everyone. Please, please, please leave us questions, leave us comments. We want to use them on the show. The opportunity is there for a mailbag type thing basically every day throughout the off season, or at least most of them. Let us know some people that you would love to see on the show. We've got a couple people in mind for draft previews that we're going to do. We'll try to do some scouting reports like we've done in years past when the Lakers have actually had picks and all that. But give us some names. Let us know who you want to see on the show, because we'd love to have good guests and bring those to you. All right. And that's it. We will see everybody on Thursday.